Just like that, we're back and we're moving now into our first segment for the morning. And like we mentioned, this conversation is definitely going to be a very interesting one with the Belize Bus Association as they discuss the effects of fuel, the rise in fuel prices. While also with us is a custom broker who will be addressing the importation fees. We've got Delroy Fairweather, he's the Vice President of the Belize Customs Broker Association. Also, Thomas Shaw, President of the Belize Bus Association, and Ewart Metzgen, who is the Secretary of the Belize Bus Association. Guys, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
So we're in this situation as we speak. Fuel rise, importation cost is up, everything is up, and folks might blame, hey, it's the coronavirus that's doing this. What is the position at this particular point? I'll start with Delroy. Delroy, what's going on? What's the position at this point?
Morning, John. Morning, Marlene. Morning, guys from the Bus Association. Well, I think basically inflation, that's all I can say. And we have seen it not only in fuel, but we have seen it rise significantly in the products that comes into this country. I know people keep on saying that they're going to the supermarket, and every week they go to the supermarket, prices are on the rise. And that has a lot to do with, one, the COVID pandemic situation, and now we have this situation with Ukraine and Russia, which is creating some even more unstable situations. And of course, Belize, we're not immune from these shocks and these threats, because basically, like I said, we rely heavily on importation, and once you have to import items, it comes at a cost. So, coupled with all that, I mentioned to some of my friends 2 years ago, I remember when the country was in panic mode, around this time the country was being shut down, we started to wonder, what would have happened throughout that period of time. Then you found out that, the cost of freight started to go up significantly, up to 300%. And those costs have not gone down since. I could say this to you because we're still looking at containers which were around $4,000 US to ship to Belize, are as much as $20,000 US to ship to Belize now. So that attributes significantly to the rise in cost of goods. And fuel, trust me, it's no different with fuel. It is no different with fuel. So, that basically summarizes where we are today.
Man. Delroy, so we're in a tough situation within our country. We know what the pandemic has done worldwide, and more so within our country, for the fact that tourism was the first hard hit area, which of course caused a lot of people to lose their jobs. That caused less money in the economy. But at the same time, people are still saying, man, the government must do something to get this situation under control. Is that possible? You're in the forefront knowing what importation cost is and whatnot. Is that possible for what people are asking?
Well, I did some research over this weekend, and along with my wife, we put together just a little spreadsheet, and I had emailed that to Ms. Shanice. I would hope if she would be able to put it up. What we did was not a 5-year comparison, but from 2016, when the tax structure was changed from import duty, and it was replaced from import duty, and it was replaced with the excise duties. Basically, if we're looking at that the first part of that slide, which shows, and what it shows, premium regular kerosene and diesel. Back in 2016, the duties which were collected were $3.56 on premium. Fast forward to 2022, we're at $4.35. Regular $3.28, and to 2016 and $3.95 now. Kerosene, of course, there wasn't any duties levied on that, but for some reason now it's at $1.27. Diesel, it's at $2.30 back in 2016, and now it's $3.57. Now this is the applicable rate of duties on that product. This does not signify the actual cost.
Yeah.
If you go down to the next one that says taxes paid to GOB, um,
$6.13.
we're looking at based on a gallon of fuel, which is calculated at a specific rate, because it doesn't matter what the cost is, the rate remains the same. So we're looking right now, presently, this was probably late February, we're looking at the total taxes that the government is collecting from premium is at $4.98. Regular, it's $4.64, kerosene $2.13, and diesel at $4.30. Now, if you just go down a little bit more where it says the CIF, which in this is the cost, insurance, and freight. This actually attributes to what the depot is actually bringing the fuel at, and this is without the duties and taxes involved. So most people know it as the acquisition cost. So we're looking at $5.73 for premium. Regular, it's at $5.99. Kerosene, $5.93. Diesel, it's at $6.13. And if you go back just up a little bit and move to your right, where I just did a quick synopsis, if you could, yeah, okay. So now this is what we're looking at roughly at the ending of February. And of course, each time a tanker comes into the country, the price will change. And this is just the cost along with the applicable duties. Premium is at $10.71, regular $10.63, kerosene $8.06, and diesel $10.43. Now, we also have to take into account that there are some post-importation charges which are not factored into this. So people might say, well, right now, if the government, we are looking at this is what it costs plus taxes inclusive, why is it that we're at $13 for some products? Well, remember now, you have the operators, the terminal operator who has to ensure that they are working at a certain profit margin. There are some post-importation charges in there which are not factored into the actual cost of the product. So, like I said, even with the bus owners, I could say to them that they have to figure out how they will run their buses and make some kind of profit, because no one is in the business of operating at not making a profit or so, because that's the viability. You're not just going to work to break even.
Yeah. No, I mean that's such an enlightening breakdown. I got to say that much. And as you talk of more costs, I'm just here thinking, you have to spend on that fuel to even move it to the pump station itself.
That's right.
Yeah. So Delroy, this was really important to set the backdrop for today's conversation with the Bus Association. The conversation has been ongoing. Yesterday there was, I would say, positive news in the interviews that we saw at the House meeting or the budget presentation. Okay. Let me just ask you your initial reaction to the comments of the Transport Minister and the Prime Minister.
Personally, I must applaud them because they're listening to us. They're sitting down, we're dialoguing, and there's good faith. As I had mentioned, we are still waiting to make sure that it materializes. As I said, we don't want to know that next month we'll be sitting at the table again or to be reinventing the wheels, discussing the same thing. But as I said, I must say that we're more than happy, because what we are doing, basically, it's not for myself as the president or Mr. Metzkin. This is throughout the country, and everybody is actually hurting. Yeah. And I must say that we're more than happy to know that, well, they're coming to the table and they're listening to us.
That's good.
I concur with what Mr. Shaw is saying. And one of the things I really told the CEO in meeting, when we had meetings on Thursday, we were there basically for 5 hours, some there about maybe 5.5 hours, thrashing out this thing that went to cabinet. We finished it on Monday. Was that really we didn't want to come to this point where bus fares would have been raised for the Belizean public. But the other option was to lower the taxes on the fuel. And that was a non-starter. So the only other thing that you could go to was the increase in fares, and with all the demands that the department and GOB is putting on operators to be improving on their fleets, the pandemic with which I must say no bus operator, we were all operating at a loss in the sense that we had the 50% and the 75% capacity, and the cost of fuel is going up from them, because as you guys know, from 2018 we've been on your shows talking about this fuel thing from the last administration. So it's not something new. It's something that was affecting the operators from then and before, and it just got worse as the pandemic came on. Then the war in Ukraine, fuel prices skyrocketing. So
So you went into that meeting on Saturday with a very rigid line. I mean, I think you were even saying last week, we're not even going to tell you when we shut down public transportation.
Yeah.
It'll just happen.
Yeah.
So you went in with a threat, essentially. But let me come to it. Just the question here is, how receptive were the government representatives in hearing your situation?
I think it was good because for me, because I did a lot of communication with CEO Leal, and sometimes after 10, 11 o'clock at night, we were both on the phone.
Okay.
For a couple of days, from like 4:30 in the morning, we were on the phone discussing and trying to get the thing going until Saturday. He said, well, I said, CEO, you know this thing, we can't do this thing over the phone.
Yeah.
And it can't be done in 5 minutes. Make we try see if we could come in and get it done wrong on table. And right away he agreed. He said, Mr. Messon, that's not a problem. You could get your people to come in as early as you all can come. He wanted us in Belmopan from about 9 o'clock Saturday morning, but I told him I live in Boom.
Oh, wow.
Then I have to call everybody to make a meet up.
Yeah.
So he said, well, then call Mr. Shah, find out who no could do it. And then I called Mr. Shah. Mr. Shah said, gee, better we tell her they could do this thing midday or after midday. So we give everybody a time to get up there.
Yeah.
We started around maybe between 12:30, 1:45. We never come out till about after 5.
Wow.
So I'd say it's the response from them is good that they met with us.
So the proposal that you originally had was for a reduce in the taxes on fuel for bus owners or across the board?
Across the board, we went in
Across
there
the
to
board.
see if it could have been done across the board. But like I said, they said that can't be done. Government can't afford to do
Because that was your way of getting some relief without passing on the cost to customers.
Yes, ma'am. But they said that's a non-starter. So the only thing they could have done was to look at bus fares, whereby we were telling them that for 30 years we have not
Raise the bus.
raised the bus fare. In 2017, 2018, thereabout, there was an adjustment because if you in some areas got a percentage, some areas didn't get any. In the south, the operators down there in some stages of the run lost $1 and $2 from off the original prices. So it did not balance out with what was done in 2017 and 18. So that's what we looked at to try and see how we could balance that.
So I know you brought your table to tell us all about how prices have remained the same for 30 years.
Yeah.
But before we even get into that, I know people be watching and say, well, you haven't done anything to your buses in 30 years.
All right, you come back to the same thing. The high cost of operation. No lending institution. If you guys could get the lending institutions in there one time, I said if they're not lending anybody $100,000, $200,000 for a 2-year road service permit, there's no way an operator could pay back $200,000 in 2 years. Then you have the political interference in the industry heavy. Basically one of the most important things when they affect the industry.
Political interference.
Yeah, because then we don't really have no control over industry. They decide who get run, who no get it, and we're part import too. So,
And some runs are more lucrative than others.
Yeah,
But let's come back to this, and I feel like deja vu, because I know that this was a part of the conversation we had when you were raising your concerns about the Mexican and Guatemalan buses that were stopping in Belize. And the issue remained the same.
Yeah.
You get a short-term contract, so you could run this run for 2 years. There's only so much you're going to earn. The cost of a more modern bus, we don't even have to go Premier, but a more modern bus is expensive, and Delroy maybe could give us insight with the import cost for that as well. And so that's your reason why you're saying we're still carrying on with the retired school bus fleet.
and they work for Belize.
Do they?
In the sense, when it comes to maintenance costs, I put it this way. You see, the old Bluebird bus and retired buses from the States.
Yeah.
Any operator that Belize service those buses, brakes, tires, make sure everything properly to work. We could drive the bus back in the US. Then new bus with Floral I got, I'll stop right at the Mexican border.
Why do you say this?
The safety, when it comes to the safety tests done on these buses, it's far more rigorous in the US when it comes, because those buses are used for children, for students in the US. And the transport in the US is much harder when it comes to the safety of their kids.
Okay.
So, one of those buses, if you take one of those buses, one that, like, for instance, Florale has, you take one like Premier Charters have, the coach buses they have, and a blue bus, a Bluebird bus. You run those into a solid concrete wall and judge for yourself.
All right, but
You do a crash course. The All Americans will
Which are
come
the
out on
Bluebird
So you're
top.
saying the Bluebirds are much more safer when it comes to.
well, that's arguable because you said if you fix it, first of all.
No,
But
I'm sure-
secondly, let's look at the fleets that bus owners currently purchase to use as tour operators. You can't use the Bluebird bus because it doesn't meet the safety standards, and they wouldn't want to travel on it. So while I hear your points on safety, for the average customer, they want an improved experience.
But they don't want to pay more. They want it for the same price.
And you know, Marlene, it's sad to say it, but and for the public listening, a lot of people figure that when these buses came in that Florala brought in, it's the first air-conditioned and buses with reclined seats, which is so sad, because if you guys can recall, in Novelos days, he didn't have a U-turn bus. He had a Mercedes-Benz,
Yeah.
which is a top-of-the-class line bus. We had Fräulein Gilhari in the 80s. He had the Greyhound buses that had air-conditioned recliners. And you know what? We are talking about pioneers. And you know what? Most of the pioneers, namely Novelos, Batiz, Fräulein Gilhari, Urbines, they're out of the business. And you know what? The truth of the matter is, the same thing that we are clamoring for now, that's what they were clamoring for. And if the business was that lucrative, they would still be in the business. And at this present moment, we are asking for the same thing. And really and truly, the minister, we sit and he said he wants to improve. And to be honest with you, the feedback from the operators, they want to do so.
Okay.
But if you need to help me so I can help myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do not dictate the pace and tell the operators, do this, do that. So what are you giving me in return? It's just as Mr. Delroy mentioned a while ago, when you look at the acquisition fee, the thing is that operators are fatigued. They got to the point where it's a boss, he said we have to shut down this country because we can't go no more. Because everybody is operating at a loss. And then the question is, well, if you're not making money, why are you still running? There's nothing else to do. And ambition and pride has my operators out there.
Yeah.
It's straight up. So at the end of the day, if you want a first class, then you should be in the position to pay for it. As it is right now, the government is saying they're not in the position to reduce the fuel. And we understand that.
Yes.
We're not blaming the government for this, but because we understand, we recognize that there's a problem abroad. And when people sneeze abroad, Belize normally catch a cold. So we recognize all of that. But in other words, the demands that are set out for operators, basically this is the reason why they recognize that the industry needs some sort of attention. Because
Yeah.
really and truly, the industry has been in existence for all these years.
Yeah.
And honestly, they take the industry lightly. And this is an industry without buses, Belize stop. And it's good to know that they are coming to the table now and recognizing that the industry needs some sort of assistance. Throughout the pandemic, no bus operator got any assistance. Absolutely. It's a shame when people would ask you internationally, are you guys industry subsidized? No. The ordinary operator has to go to the pump just like any ordinary person and buy fuel, and we get no discount. So at the end of the day, operators want to improve. But in order for us to go forward as policymakers, we need to come to the table as a responsible leader, as the president of the Bus Association. I see where they're dialoguing with us.
Yeah.
So I told my operators, let's stand back and let's see what's going to happen, because if we're dialoguing and then we're in a discussion, and then tomorrow I shot you in your leg, then that doesn't make no sense. Both of us fight, nobody wins.
Mr. Shaw, you made mention of something very important. You told your operators, let's stand back. I want to get into what the conversation, or why you guys, even though you had the conversation, are deciding to stand back. And
Right.
then what happens if the stand back doesn't really work out. But before you do that, the transport minister made mention that, and it was in the news yesterday, that too much bus operators dip on the road. What are your thoughts on that? Is that so? How do you
Well, to be honest with you, the bus operators are not out there because they wanted to. We went down this road already, whereas you know that most of the operators had sold out to the Novelis brothers, and they wanted one national bus company. Okay, and this is the reason why we are fighting, because we've been there, we've done it, and we saw where that went. The bottom line is that the Novelis brothers were the only company, they didn't have no competition.
in the West?
No,
Countrywide when they
countrywide.
bought out,
Even though you had James?
Apart
Just
from,
James, but
James
that
was
wasn't-
in his own.
But what
Okay.
I really want to come to and let the public be aware of, because they haven't came up here and really discussed that, and
Okay.
everybody is just looking at the 30 million.
Okay.
But they said they wanted to improvement, and in reality they brought in quite a bit of air-conditioned buses, nice buses. But and really, Batiz was out, Froland Gilhari was out, Urbina was out,
Escalante.
Escalante was out, and Novelos had all of this business. And in reality, they said progress brought problems due to the fact that, yes, he got this money. They're trying to improve. That's what the government wanted at that time. But you know what? He was asking for the same thing we were asking for now. And even though he didn't have competition, he still failed. So even now, with this mega investment that this operator is bringing in, operators need some sort of assurance to know that if you invest, your return will be there. Because I heard Mr. Vanze mention on your show that, the question was asked if our invitation was actually handed out to him. No, we couldn't give him no invitation because he didn't consult with us when he came in, and we are not against Ferrara, or making that clear. We are not against in changes. We are not against transformation, but it's the way they came in. The bottom line is, if you want to, a run wasn't built, you cannot build a run in 24 hours.
Okay.
And all my operator gripe was that if you're coming in, then you try to apply for runs that are not established. You don't come in and apply for an established run.
But,
That's-
and I think this comes back to the larger problem. When we talk about, and we've been joined by the chief transport officer, the minister himself, and the CEO. And I've heard it from you before in previous conversation. There is a need and there is a desire to upgrade the transportation system in the country. But
Right.
there are a lot of things that have to be fixed from all ends. And the issue of runs and how they're granted and who gets a permit, when they talk about too much buses, it's not just that there are too many buses. It's that people want the more lucrative runs.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
There's too
Everybody
little of them.
wants
There's
when
too
the
little
rush
of
is going to
those.
go.
There's too little of those.
So with that said, we know we have this transportation master plan that
Yes.
they're trying to roll out. Now, if you're saying that we're oversaturated, of which I agree, but as I mentioned, why I brought up the Novelis scenario is due to the fact that when Novelis went under in the receivership in 2006, that's how these operators came on board.
Okay.
So you have to be careful how you say about all and the operator have to come off of the road, because you know what, up to this present moment, that the same lead operator, they hold up who hold up the end of the stick, you know.
Yeah.
So the thing is that the operators are not out there because they wanted to.
No, but
They didn't have no buses that were running, so they had to call school bus. They had to, and that's how these operators got out there. But
I guess the question is, if it's not oversaturation, which is what some people say, but I see it differently, that it's just, there's only so many runs, as Ewart says, that you'll actually make money from.
Right.
If you're doing the middle of the morning where nobody going to work and maybe just to come in to do some
city
kind of business in an
business,
urban
yeah.
area, it's not as much as the work rush.
Okay.
But is there openness from the end of the bus association for, I know that's not the issue of today, but after we get past this one, it'll still be an issue. It's been lingering for a long
Yeah.
time. What is the sense of openness as the Ministry of Transport says they want to implement the master plan? You say you want to be able to deliver better services, but there are actual policy changes that have to be made, how long the terms are, access to financing.
And the groundwork also, most importantly, needs to be done, especially when it comes to in the lineup where they say they want these electrical buses here. We don't have the infrastructure that Belize yet. I
Let me
mean, we
come
only
back
have
to-
one electrical company, and I mean, yes, they have one or two of the electrical car with them plug in after them place and charge. But countrywide, the terminals that we currently use are not in no way, shape, or form ready
To have
for
electrical.
to have the sort of equipments to have these buses plugged up in.
The charge.
Yeah, the charge. So before you can tell we have to buy the electrical bus, put the infrastructure
What's
in
the
a
cost
place.
of an electrical bus? Have
Okay.
you looked into it?
okay,
we
well,
looked
not look
into
into it. We had some consultants and we did that virtual.
Okay.
And so I was asking the question, what's the cost of the bus, sir? It's $800,000.
That's
I
US dollars.
I
not
said, and what's the
Belize dollars.
duration of the batteries? He said like 8 years. I said, and how much does it cost to change these batteries? He said $250,000. Now, you know what? When you look at this industry, just a crazy man will go and invest that kind of money in Belize right now. Because really and truly, that would be passing on the most of the costs to the consumers,
Yeah.
to the commuters. And really and truly, as I said, and I mentioned over and over, that whenever you're going to build a building, you never put the roof on first. You start from the foundation,
Foundation, yeah.
right? And we need to start as policymakers, you need to set the foundation. And after you have set the foundation as a parent, as a mother or father, and your child fail, then you fail because maybe due to management or something. But whenever you want to tell the operators to, you need this, you need to do that, we need better terminals, we need better roads. Honestly, that is what you call infrastructure, setting things in place.
Yeah.
Try find funding for the operators. And if an operator, well, all of this came up in our meeting, the minister said he's going to try find funding. I said, well, minister, you just attack the operators, you just attack
Free language.
Yeah.
free language,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But let me just come back to the question though, because I hear you with the electric. I mean, that's almost $2 million for one bus.
All right.
Belize. But the assessment of the runs, how open? Because anytime there is a suggestion of a change in runs, there's an upset from bus operators. Maybe not the whole association, but from bus operators.
Well, based on that, Marlene, is that what we are looking at, and we're not looking at it at, we're not trying to be selfish or trying to keep anybody out. But all we're saying is if you want to bring in a foreign entity or anybody that want to come and invest into our industry,
Transportation.
as I said, it's the only industry that is left that is owned and operated by Belizeans. And this is the reason why we are so adamant on making sure that this remains in the hands of Belizeans. Because some people say, for argument's sake, I met Mr. Vanze the first time they brought in the buses. They took us to their office and he said, this is what the buses cost. $550,000, duties, importation, all the rest of it. The first two buses that they brought in was $1.2 million. Now, with that vast investment, you never set up an operator to fail, because I wish them well. But as an experienced operator, I know fully well the way the runs are set up. It's going to take you a while before you can actually...
Return on investment, no?
Absolutely. So this is the first thing we have got to look at. And if Mr. Vanze wanted to come in this business, yes, I know he did his groundwork, but sometimes you can sit here and do things on that paper, and when you go out there on the ground, it's something different, because no bus leaves from point A to point B with 100% capacity. They started out those runs as an express runs. And less than 3 years, they tweeted they run 4 times.
3 months.
3 months.
3 months. So this is just to tell you, that's undermining to the public as well, because you said you were going to run an express service. My operators are calling me, what happened, Florida run change? I said, I don't know. When you look, why Florida,
Pick up people.
they pick up people.
On regular bus, just
So
like
they're running regular now, and this is the situation. And it would have been good if he had came to the table and sat with us. And I'm giving him an open invitation to get on board. I'd like to be up on the show along with himself, and let's discuss it.
have a conversation.
Absolutely.
So your gripe is that he's now offering a service he doesn't have a permit for. That's an enforcement issue.
No,
Because if the permit is express-
it was changed
No.
from the express to a regular.
But that was just changed within, so I brought that
Something
up
a
at the
regular
board
operator
level.
can't get done.
I brought that up at the
But
board
what
level,
going to
and
the
that
board?
was, at the board level, that was addressed, that
But can you agree that if there is a serious change to be made to improve the overall transportation system, it means that some operators will have to let go of the high traffic time runs and work within time frames where they won't have even 50% capacity.
One of to answer and to look at that, one of the situations that were discussed with transport, and we're using the Western Corridor as an example, whereby bus operators are in blocks, and it seems to be working fine in that respect. When it comes from Belize City to San Ignacio Benque, operators are in blocks, and we've been in discussions with them saying, let's try and see how we can do the same in the north. But in the north is a bit of a problem, because there's too many operators, like single operators, coming out of the north.
Okay.
One of the suggestions to fix that was, and this was suggested by the minister to us, and also CEO, the CTO, that to try and see if the larger operators could incorporate the small operators into their business. And in that aspect, you can block off the north, maybe having 2 or 3 large
And that was
Operators.
another question I have. I mean, how's the cooperative system working out? Is that not something that can be replicated in?
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
The BBOC situation
Yeah.
is a perfect example of getting.
Because then at
Getting to
least
that.
when I get the lighter load and you get the heavy load, it all comes back to the same company.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened is with the BBOC thing, I am also a member of the BBOC.
Okay.
All runs are rotated on a daily basis. Maybe today, if you start at 8 o'clock today, tomorrow, on 8 o'clock, you're on 8:30.
Okay.
So your share
So everybody
more
could meet up
profitable
there,
route.
runs,
so
yeah.
get
So-
a piece of the pie.
besides, I know one man they get the CN run every day with profitable.
Profitable.
It shares
Yeah.
amongst us.
So you will have your downtime, you will have your uptime.
Yeah.
Now, time is not on our side, but I really want to ask this. You guys have mentioned that, all right, so we're gonna relax because the conversation have started. But is it because the conversation have started, or because you've been promised something and there is a timeline for it?
Well, the conversation, yes, and it's still ongoing. But as I said, we have passed that already. It doesn't make no sense for us to be moving the goalpost.
Okay.
As I said,
So I want to stick that in at the ground now.
absolutely,
Yes.
we can't move the goalpost. The bottom line is, if my operators, if we're not really given what we're being promised, then, as I said, we go from there.
Have you
again.
given you
I
a
want
timeline
some-
for that?
Well, it's supposed to go to cabinet, and
Yeah.
as I said, we are going to let diplomacy reign.
Okay.
And as I said, we're waiting.
We had asked for it not to take longer than 2 weeks.
So you've given a 2-week
Yeah.
deadline.
Yeah.
Well, we have.
Is
I mean,
the public transportation shutdown off the table at this point?
no, that still is on the table.
That's still there. That's
So
In
if
the
in
event.
2 weeks nothing happened, you're
Yeah.
looking back at that. Secondly, you want a fare increase. That's one thing.
Yeah.
What,
Well, we need that in order for us to accomplish what they are telling us we must do.
and
It
you
can't be
know-
done without that.
And you know
what is the amount? Because that's the most, I'm sure people watching right now
Well,
and they're
we
listening,
were-
they want to know how much.
We were asked to, if we, until it goes through cabinet,
And we can't discuss
not
that
to
anymore.
discuss it until cabinet looks at it and sees.
Are we looking at a small change or a substantial change? You could
Well,
give me small or substantial.
In
It's
some
just enough
areas,
it's just enough to offset what we're losing.
Okay.
No, I thought from the customer point of view.
Well, it hasn't reached cabinet as yet,
any
so we
increase
just
can
leave
be
that.
more than 1 hour, however the consumer willing
Yeah.
to pay.
There's a
Okay.
difference between $1 and $5.
Well, we're
They
not
not
going
be
to be
$5,
so
definitely not
know.
be
We're not
$5.
going to be so extravagant.
All right. And
And then the issue with Floralia, what are you asking for?
Florida, for him to come on board, if we rope in Florida, then he can't go behind
To
with back
be
ass
in
and
the
nothing.
association.
Come on board, because when we leave him out there, then he cherry pick. We want to get you on board, and if you want to do anything, it should be public knowledge. Simple as that.
all right. And finally, we still have Delroy. Delroy, do you see any in terms of importation cost? Is there anything on the horizon whereby that could go down or will go more or go up more? What are you seeing at this point?
Yeah, I think that with the price of crude oil, the price falling, we may see some relief. Again, like I said, I'm not really the expert in the fuel industry. I'm just going based from my knowledge of importation and so forth. Listening to the conversation, and I know you've heard all these numbers out here that government is collecting as much as $7 and all that, and like I said, this graph pretty much shows you that they're just around $5 that they're collecting in taxes. Remember, again, it's a balancing act where the revenue from fuel makes up for roughly
That's
about
cost that's on the screen, right?
yeah, well, this is the overall cost that you're looking at after taxes and so forth, and this is without any markup or any margins of so forth. This is just basically the cost of purchasing the fuel, transportation of the fuel, and also the duties and taxes that are levied on the fuel. So right now, presently, at the ending of February, we're looking at diesel, which is one of the main commodities at $10.43. And this does not include, like I said, the markup at the pump, the terminal, those post-importation charges, and so forth. I am thinking that because the frequency of what the tanker that comes in, remember again, they have purchased fuel at the higher rate. So as soon as the price per barrel starts falling, and I think that tanker comes to Belize every 2 weeks, I am saying maybe within a month time or so, we may see some adjustments to those prices, right? But again, like I said, it's not anywhere close to what people are thinking that it's.
So you wanted to clarify when you hear people say that they take $7 out of the price of fuel.
Per gallon.
No, it's right here. It's pretty much
It's
at
3
the
to
highest
5
end.
from what I saw with your graph. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's and I just did, like I said, a 2016 comparison compared to 2022 comparison because
Yeah.
the structure had changed. But
All right.
yeah,
All right.
I think
Closing thoughts, gentlemen.
I think we do have to do this more often to make it public knowledge. And I want to thank the viewers. I want to personally commend the minister, the administration for actually coming to the table and dialoguing with us. I must say at the board level, I want to say a big thanks to the CTO. They are young, vibrant people. The CTO, the CEO, they're young. I sit there and I see where they're trying. So as I said, if somebody is trying, it's best to be positive along with them and don't try to bring them down. And I must say that, yes, we're going through this struggle, but that doesn't mean to say we have an agenda against the government.
Okay.
We just want to work in harmony, and we have that mutual understanding, whereas we can understand each other's pain.
All right. All right. So, Delroy, we thank you. Thomas, thank you. Ewart, thank you for joining us this morning,
problem.
guys. It
Thank
was a
you,
great
John.
conversation.
Absolutely.
All right, so we need to take a break.
Thanks
When we
for
come
having
back,
us.
we'll be discussing some deals and more deals with Digi in the month of March. We'll tell you about those when we come back. Stay with us.